The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the commentators, guest, and host. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the policy or the views held by Tobago Updates or this network. Tobago Updates or this network cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Vox Populi. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first show for 2024. So let me wish you a prosperous new year. And I wish to, no pun intended, so I wish to underscore the word, wish you a prosperous and happy new year. And so, the realities are that numbers don't lie, right? And we're in the third day of January, and so far in Tobago we already had one shooting incident that resulted in the death and the wounding of another. So in 2 days, 2 persons directly affected by gunshots, of a population of 60,000 people, to be conservative, 60,000 people. Those are alarming numbers, very, very alarming numbers. Those are not comforting numbers. One incident of gunshot in 2 days, one incident of gunshot in 3 days, resulting in the death of one and the wounding of another in a population of 60,000 people. Those numbers are higher than the casualties in places like the Ukraine and in places like the Gaza. Those are alarming numbers. It may be small to us, but we have to look at it statistically. I want to go back to what took place last year. I think in 7 days, there was some sporadic shootings that resulted in some murders and so. And when you look at those numbers, it means that we may very well have the highest incidence of murders in the world. Because you have to put in our population size, we have to do it per capita, we have to look at the ratio and all of that. We may very well have here in Tobago the highest numbers of murders in the world. And I just want to remind you that this is a place where we tell tourists to come. This is a place where we tell other people in other parts of the world to come. I just want to put in for the discussion's sake that I was looking at the statistics on the most attractive and most populated and places that has and now enjoy the highest tourism population. And you'll never believe it's the Middle East. You'll never believe it's the Middle East. But having said that, people go to the Middle East for the thrill and the excitement and the holy sites and all of that. Our reason for saying to people to come to Tobago is a very different one. So what the Middle East could mitigate with their incidents of violence and war and terror and so, we may very well be unable to do that. And of course, let me extend my condolences to the relatives of Mr. Ho Choi Charles, the former Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, first in fact, and Mr. Basdio Pandey, a former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. So we'll be discussing those 2 subject matters tonight and all the antecedent points that flow from those discussions. To discuss those 2 issues with me and the antecedent points that may flow from them, from my left we have with us, of course, Mr. Barry Nelson, a senior civil servant here in Tobago, and always on the ball discussing the issues as they arise. Mr. Nelson, welcome.
Happy New Year to you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Happy New Year to you. Did I say Happy New Year in my introductory? No, not to you, but did I say generally? I was making the point. I'm really not in the business of wishing people a Happy New Year. And that's why I said, I wish to underscore the word wish in wishing people a Happy New Year. Because when it's here going good, I don't want nobody getting vexed with me, you know. And the realities are that things are looking dim, they are looking grim, they are looking terrible. The forecast is not clear, but we'll get into those things. So, welcome, Mr. Nelson. I also have with us social activists for matters of justice and fairness and so, and some financial empowerment and so, Mr. Lyndon Mack. He's here with us as well.
Good night, everybody. Good night to the public of Tobago.
And of course, my best friend in the entire politics. He bad talks me, he slanders me, and all of that. We agree on nothing. We agree on absolutely nothing. But I always make the point. This show is not about smelling and licking people's K-packs. He has a view. And there are persons in this space called Tobago that subscribe to his view also. And as long as I am sitting here, he would always have the opportunity to share his view, even if I don't agree with his views. But nonetheless, he's a businessman involved in the tourism sector. He's a tour guide, among many other things. He's an academic, and that is Mr. Leroy George. And welcome, Leroy, to the program.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Barrington Skippy. Welcome, Mr. Barry Nelson. Welcome, Mr. Lyndon Mack. And welcome to the people of Tobago. Happy New Year. We know this one is going to be a lot better than the last one.
Thank you, Leroy.
You know it would be?
It had to be. It can't get worse than this.
Well,
that last one was bad enough.
You
equal.
No, you don't run country.
Give or take a murder or two. They equal the highest record of murders in Tobago since Tobago and Trinidad exists as a nation.
No, but when you say it have to, I just want to make the point to you.
I'm speaking it into being. No,
well, listen, those things are like magic to me, right? And you don't run country by having a buck home or a genie in a bottle. It have to be done through strategies based on economic matters and so, right? So we'll get into those things. Gentlemen, Pochoy Charles, a warrior, the heavy roller, first chief secretary, he's now dead. My condolences, of course, to his family, those that knew him and love him. What are your thoughts, or do you have any vivid experience? Anybody could share any vivid experience they have had with Pochoy?
I can tell you definitely.
Yes.
This is the man who championed for Tobago autonomy. And I would also say, one of the things I really admired about him in his time of being alive is that a number of students would have passed through his undertaking to understand the legislation and the framework behind the Act of 1940.
The 1940 Act? When was that Act, Barry?
1996.
40 of 96. Act 40 of 1996.
Yeah, correct, yeah. So, I mean, we have the university students from Trinidad. I think he really contributed a lot to, outside of the avenue of politics, he did a lot of education to the younger persons in Tobago. I think that is one of the things I would seriously take away from that conversation.
Okay. Barry, you must have known Pochoy. There's no doubt in my mind. You must have known Pochoy and interacted with him on many levels, particularly since one of your job at the ministry is that usually man does go along for the check to bring it up for the THA?
Well, let me check the process.
Oh, well, the process, yes.
Well, you know, with Mr. Charles, you see, you have to depend on what aspect you want to look at Mr. Charles,
Yes.
because Mr. Charles was in the credit union movement.
Yes, he was in the cooperative society, yes.
movement, and then politics. Well, he was one of the person who helped with the, starting from 76 to champion the call for self-governance to Tobago. Yes. He was with, well, in the background,
yes.
when Robinson and Dr. Murray and others were in the forefront.
Yes.
As far as when Robinson came back to Tobago, he was one of the soldiers in the background.
Hot choice, yeah.
So he was being prepared.
And he was a Black Power
activist
as well.
Right. So he was in the background as a soldier preparing to hand over the battle when people like A.R. Robinson and Murray would have taken. So we have to have soldiers, because when you're in a struggle, when you're in a struggle, you have to have people, because you never know. Life is short, life is fragile, and you never know when the people, the personnel in the front line will leave us. And Ochoa would have been in one of the soldiers, and he would have led the battle especially in the 90s, and then especially when he became the first chief secretary in 96, and he would have led that. Ochoa I consider was a person which was misunderstood by the people of Tobago. So he was a leader that never got the time to lead. He was the leader of the THA, but he never got a chance to lead. You know, you have somebody, you're a leader, but you never get the chance to lead. Because he had to fight battles and struggles from the Tobago people, not from the Trinidad people. Because the people of Trinidad understood what Ochoa wanted for Tobago and the people of Tobago. But it's the people of Tobago.
No, you have to explain that.
Yeah.
Because Ochoa have always said his fight was from the people in Trinidad. You have said that his fight was from the people in Tobago.
I don't know if Ochoa ever said that.
Yes, he did.
Right. The struggle. Yeah. There's a difference. The English language is a funny language that none of us will understand. But from my interpretation and from my being close to Mr. Charles, the fight, he had to fight his own people. Because a lot of Tobagoans didn't understand. When you're in a struggle, you have to understand a person. Ochoa was in a struggle for the people on the island of Tobago. And the Tobagonians did not understand that. So when he had to fight his own people, he had to struggle when Trinidad saw. He had to struggle with Trinidad.
Did he share with you some of the people he had to fight with here in Tobago? It's important for us to know them.
Yeah, well, the Tobago in general, because the Tobagonians did not understand what.
I was just about to ask you, what was the fight he had in Tobago then?
Right. As I said, he was a leader. He was a leader of many parties, and within those parties, he had to fight struggles, because a lot of them, even some of his supporters, didn't understand the struggle. Within the THA, also, as leader, as chief secretary, first chief secretary, the assembly, meaning the people, the institution, they did not understand the struggle and the fight for what, in order for Tobagonians to be equal with their counterparts in Trinidad. So he had to fight that struggle. So he was a leader, but he never got time to lead. For example, Orville, Mr. London, he was a leader. He got 4 terms in order to lead. So we could have understand the style of leadership. Ochoa didn't have that time to lead, so that we never got a time.
That's chief secretary.
Yes.
Remember, he had some terms he served before as chairman,
Right, but it's only not until 40 of 96 where the Tobago institution called the Tobago Assembly got some where they could have done, because remember they had specific responsibilities.
And incidentally, the other man we'll discuss, but not now, that died.
Mr. Pan.
was the Trinidadian that acquiesced to her choice request for giving the THA that clout it has now.
Well, yes.
And we must recognize him in debt for that.
Yeah, when we reach that stage. And so part of the struggle was Trinidad and basically the PNM party. Because this is politics. And the PNM is a political party. And one of the reasons being that is that when, especially post 96, when the central government see the works that Hochoy was, the road that Hochoy was taking on Tobago, they saw it would have been, Trinidad would have been unmanageable to govern. And they say, in their estimate, they couldn't allow Hochoy to carry Tobago down that road of prosperity and equality. There was always a struggle with them.
I don't know if I agree with you.
But why you say that? You say this is a discussion.
I probably
I don't know what to agree with because I suspect that you're a real Hochoy fan, but you really.
I remember I said that a lot of people misunderstood.
But I'm not satisfied that you had put anything on the table for us to substantiate.
Would you like me to put something on the table?
I don't know if Hochoy caused the Act 40 of 1996. In fact, I think Hochoy did not cause it.
When I say cause, what do you mean?
He was part of the.
He was one of the instrumental when there was that place down in Blackrock.
I don't know Grafton. Right, and I am saying that I don't know if that is Hochoy's work, and I'll tell you why.
I never said that. He was the leader of the party.
The NER?
That was the NER.
It was an arrangement from the NER
well, yeah.
that Robinson was still around with.
Yeah.
And I remember the names Carlton. Okay.
Carlton Phillips and all of those.
Carlton Phillips and all Carlton those. Calendar.
Oh yeah, well all of those, right? I was saying.
I suspect you're calling some. Okay, let me say it from the position where I was in Trinidad when all of this happened. And I not beat around the bush.
No,
I was in the bosom with Basdio. And let me repeat, in the bosom of Basdio Pandey when this took place. Remember, Robinson contested the election on his own here in Tobago. There was no unity in the platform. And Robinson was in Tobago maintaining the position that we will make the difference. You remember, there was the 1772.
Yeah.
And Robinson was, so the point I'm making, Robinson was still around.
Yeah.
We will make the difference. The election came down to the result, and I'm telling you, in fact, I'm putting this on the record because the both of them died, and maybe the record should be clear. So I hear the name Carlton Phillips and things. They might have been minions in the whole arrangement, but they contributed nothing to
No, you can't get away with that. Don't mean they contributed nothing.
Well, you said,
wasn't a one-man show.
Well,
I am not
agreeing with you that is how it came about. No, it sounds cute to put it on their political resume. I'm saying. So I'm saying also, Papa, I don't know. I am talking, let me be clear. I am talking about the meeting with Pandey to create the coalition, government. I suspect you talking about a position the NER met and had before. And say, well, this is what we would ask for.
You're mixing up yourself.
I'm not mixing up myself at all.
Yes, I'm
telling you, I can't remember Carlton Phillips playing any significant role, if any at all, in that process. And I'm telling you, my recollection of what took place is when the results came down, it was the fella, I think he's deceased now too.
Who's that?
Carlton.
No, Skippy, all elected members.
Let me finish what I'm saying and then you could tell me what I'm saying. Yeah. You saying all elected members?
Yes, all of them was in the, all of them was around that thing.
Mappa.
Some representative, yeah.
Mappa, listen to me, right?
A group of them. Wasn't Hochoy alone. Wasn't a one-on-one with Pandey and Hochoy alone.
Right, but every time you giving your version.
I feel as though this becoming a discussion between you two gentlemen.
No.
You was in Pampas, so relax.
Which is important to take
every time you give your position, allow me to give mine and so we could move on. I'm saying my recollection of what took place is when it was 1772 and it was recognized in Rienzi Complex that there is need to talk to Robinson. Brico Airlines, and they were Are you listening to? No, have some discipline, Papa. Brico Airlines, owned in part by I calling people name. I suspect these people want this to remain private. But Brico Airlines, owned in part by Harry Raghunanan. They came to Tobago with Ish Galbaran Singh on board. And Ish set up Grafton. Hold on. They met with Carlton Calendar and Harry Narayan. And we would call him before the night is over. Before the night is over, I'm going to call Harry Narayan to explain the role he played in this. And Harry Narayan. And he and Carlton Calendar, they were the one that went and met Robinson. They had a very private meeting with Pandey Galbaran Singh, and Kamla Prasad Bisesa. During that meeting, there was some agreement to give Tobago its autonomy. So this broader meeting you're talking about, that meeting was a puppy show. That meeting really did nothing. It's Robinson, and Ho-Choi was not in that meeting I'm talking about. So it was Robinson, not even Pam was in that meeting. In fact, the records would always reflect Pam's disquiet when Robinson joined in the coalition with Pandey, but water under the bridge. So when Robinson became president, because Pam always had a disquiet on it, that is why it was easy for Pandey to eject her from his cabinet and bring in Morgan Job and
Mr. Skippy.
See what I'm telling you?
Mr. Skippy,
so all them names you're calling about Ho-Choi and Carlton Phillips and them thing there, that might be things for you all to song. That might be things for you all to song good on your resume when you're walking around Tobago. That is not how Tobago got Act 40 of 1996. Right? Good.
Skippy, you are totally wrong. You are mixing up two issues. You are mixing up the 1717-2
yeah.
and the Act of 40 of 90. You are mixing up that. You know what Attorney General then? Ramesh was there. Ramesh was overseeing this whole procedure of Act of 40
you
of 96.
You're talking about the rollout of the procedure.
Let's proceed.
No, we can't proceed.
We could proceed.
Leroy think we should proceed. But let me tell you something. So you see, the point I'm making is that politicians make the arrangement. What you're talking about is when Ramesh took charge of the procedure and they had the consultations and so to roll it out. Act 40 of 1996 was agreed in principle as a package for Robinson to bring the two seats to form government. What you're talking about is the rollout. If you don't know, I will tell you.
That was what you're talking about. That was what was thing was president. 1772 there was agreement to make Robinson.
When Pandey won the election, let's create
95.
Let's create back 95. The timeline.
95.
And when the act came about.
96.
My point
Mr.
exactly.
Skippy, you're correct.
When was it Tobago House of Assembly election?
96. Gentlemen, multiple things could be right at the same time. Right. The reality of the situation is that in 95, we had that split situation where PNM and UNC had equal number of votes.
Yeah.
Right? And yes, Mr. Barrington, you're correct, I might have been a very young person at the time.
No, he's Barry.
Mr. Barry and Barrington, right? But these things are written in records, and written work is formalized thought, so we know exactly what happened, right? And so I don't think it could have been a coincidence that the two seats from Tobago determining which person or which party would form the government, that cannot be a coincidence.
And then 1 year after,
so when I hear Mr. Skippy saying that especially like 1 year after, that is like, they had the Haitian, I don't want to go on a tangent, but they had the Haitian Revolution, and immediately after that, everybody want to end slavery.
Because I always believe that, Lyndon, I always believe that people need to know the truth.
Yes.
And we must not write history to give some laurels and don't give some to others.
Multiple things could be true at the same time, right? So, A.N.R. Robinson would have played his role in getting Tobago to the level of autonomy that we have today, which is Act 40 of 1996, by using those two seats wisely, right? However, it also remains a fact that in 1996, Ho-Choi Charles became the chief secretary, right? And something very important happened a couple years after that. And what happened a couple years after that is that the Tobago House of Assembly went from being an average a $350 million a year institution to a give or take a couple $100 million, a $2 billion institution, because now you have the Joint Select Committee stating that Tobago cannot get less than 4.03% of the budget, right? And that in itself is greater autonomy, because now you control more money. Money is freedom, right? So when Mr. Nelson would indicate that Mr. Ho-Choi Charles would be responsible for some of the autonomy that we have today, to state that he is, or to indicate or insinuate that he is wrong, is like indicating or insinuating that just as A.N.R. Robinson, shortly after becoming the person that decided which person would become the next prime minister, Ho-Choi Charles had nothing to do with Tobago reaching the level of autonomy that it got.
He did
I'm not saying 1996. I'm not saying 1996. I'm not saying 1996. But I am saying that after 1996, because it wasn't 1996, it was in the late 1990s, that is when the Tobago House of Assembly.
He triggered the DRC report.
And so we must always... Exactly, and it's the Chief Secretary that triggers the DRC report.
To note,
so you must always honor him and remember that also.
And in support of what you say, it's important to note that when Robinson exited the cabinet to escalate to the presidency, that was when Pandey and Ho-Choi clashes began.
Yes.
With Ho-Choi going down to Port of Spain to say, don't vote for Pandey in the 2000 election. And Pandey coming up when he won the election up here to damage Ho-Choi, and that's how London and the PNM came in, because the votes were so divided and polarized and so. So you have to walk this. So I am not sitting. Now this is not to dishonor Ho-Choi Charles' name. And this is not to dishonor any contribution Ho-Choi Charles have made to Tobago's autonomy. But I cannot sit on any forum and voluntarily or willingly agree that Ho-Choi was the man who negotiated and caused.
Who said that? Who said that?
You said that
I
all
never
evening.
said that.
In fact, you interrupted me on many occasions to insist upon it.
He insinuated it. But he did not actually say it. But it remains a fact that he...
Act 40 of 1996 was Robinson negotiating that to get into cabinet. And he did it unilaterally.
And Ho-Choi Charles triggered the meeting.
And I'm going to call one of the brokers of that arrangement to join this discussion in a while.
I don't know how important that is, but we could go down that road. I think what is important to remember though...
Well, the both men are dead.
Yeah, both men are dead.
And the person, and in fact the other broker, Carlton Cullen, he's dead too. And the last living broker is Harry Narayan. He's alive.
And so he's somebody that we need to hear from.
He's alive.
Yes.
Robinson dead, Ho-Choi dead, Pandey dead, Calendar dead. The other man in the room that remains standing is Harry Narayan. But, so, let's continue with Ho-Choi's legacy.
You see the problem here? The problem here, why you are hearing a difference of opinion, is because we have not placed the one thing on the record by saying the documentary of Tobago that brings about what happened from a specific era to now. And this is why you're going to continuously hear a difference of everybody's opinion until we could be able to set that record straight the same way. This is why documenting stuff is very important. What will happen 60 years from now? Can we say that Barrington Skippy or Barry Nelson was part of the discussion to make XYZ forward? We have to recognize those things.
And I support that. Having Act 40 of 1996 is important.
Right.
But we need to
have the proper documentation.
And here I'm raising this, Barry. I know you're very hot-headed and you get angry quickly and so. I'm not sure if you're from Mason Hall. Manning warned this nation from Mason Hall people. He say when they don't agree with you, they get very, very angry. But you see, here why is and why I think this is very important. The chronic, I think Davidson, the Dr. Davidson, wrote the Chronicles of Tobago. He's dead now.
He's one of was one of them in the process too. He was one of the person who was wrongly taken.
Based on what he wrote, it would seem to me that in 2025, it would mark 100 years since the first dissent or the first red flag or the first voice in objection against the unity of Tobago with Trinidad would have been raised. Initially raised. 2025 will make it 100 years. And I think you have raised a very valid point, Lyndon. We're discussing this point for, well,
a while.
For all intent and purposes in 2024. Yeah. So let me say, we're discussing this for a century now. With all different kind of players just passing the baton. The last man holding the baton now is the Chief Secretary name again? Sorry. I just saw because I know. Yeah, I just got everybody saying Farley. I was trying to call him by his correct name.
Farley Chavez.
Right. He's the last person holding the baton now. Since the first person expressed discontent 100 years ago. Are we satisfied that the same process is working?
When you say the same process. No, no. The struggle, no, let me just back up a little. The struggle starts from a national point of view in because remember in 1981 the Tobago House of Assembly came into being.
Yeah.
So it was national, where basically, as I said before, A&I Robinson and Murray, from a parliamentary side of it, would have championed the cause for internal self-government for Tobago. He started off with internal self-government. On the creation of the institution called the Tobago House Assembly, where Tobago, where he had a body called the Tobago House Assembly, instead of the central government, we had a body called the Tobago House Assembly. But still have oversight from the central government from 81 until 95, 96. Where from 96, where basically the oversight that the central government had over the Tobago House Assembly, that would have ended. And the Tobago basically had so-called some kind of autonomy where they could have had some, where they could have challenged. So it becomes, from 81, it became a Tobago House of Assembly struggle for more autonomy. So from 81, they had to autonomy by the creation of the TH.
So, but you do know that the struggle for autonomy,
it started off with self-governance. Because remember,
no, but you do know the 81 is not when it started.
What?
You know that this.
But I just said from the 76.
No, but I'm telling you, it was way before that.
In modern times we're talking about the era of.
No, but that's not the point I've made. I've made the point that if this discussion, if you read Davidson's book, Chronicles of Tobago, and the issue of self-governance started, 2025 would make it 100 years. And then we had the 81 version of the assembly, and then we have the 96 version of the assembly. And then we're still in 2025 discussing autonomy. Are we satisfied that we are, as Tobagonians, for 100 years? I don't care who did it, whether it's Ho Choi, Robinson, Davidson, Bigat, Fargo, and you go way before them too. I'm not all over the place because I suspect that you are here to, what Shakespeare said in Julius Caesar. You are here to praise Ho Choi, and nothing is wrong with that.
No. We are here to discuss it.
If we're discussing the issue of autonomy, the issue of autonomy doesn't start and begin with Ho Choi.
Who said that? Who is saying that?
So why are you discounting?
We are here to discuss Ho Choi.
Why are you discounting Davidson's work that said this issue started 2025
the reason why we having this
100 years,
gentlemen.
Why are you discounting
that? Gentlemen. Yeah. The reason why we having this discussion, Mr. Lyndon Mack could have already alluded to it. It's an issue of education. Everything that has been discussed thus far should have been appreciated and understood by even any high school student that passed through Tobago. However,
honestly chronicled.
Honestly
chronicled.
And one of the ways to make that happen is in Act 40 of 1996, where you see among the 33 responsibilities of the Tobago House of Assembly, you have education. And the persons, we could debate about who drafted it and all of that, but the persons who ever drafted it, they would have had the wisdom to put in open and close bracket, including curriculum.
Well,
and so what that says to me...
Well, the only person who can draft laws in this country is the chief parliamentary counsel and the officer.
Right.
When they go to the parliament, the parliamentarians could tweet it and amend it. But the drafters...
A very knowledgeable person, Mr.
The only person in law that could draft bills is the chief parliamentary
But we're still jumping over the point that Mr. Lyndon Mack...
We are back to the same issue. Because if we are to rediscover the conversations that Hochoi would have had in the last 5 to 10 years, we are still at the same place that says Tobago does not know its power. We are in a situation now where we cannot get our autonomy, and as you rightfully said, we don't have the power to pass our own laws. So now the discussion that we should be really looking at is, with the contribution of Winston Murray and Hochoi Charles and all the other persons literally on Harina 9 and all these other persons that you mentioned, where are we now in Tobago in the discussion? Barry rightfully said, Barry said that Hochoi had a fight with his own people in Tobago. I would somewhat agree with him. I was a child going to school at the point in time, and the contribution you heard from persons back then would have been, Hochoi, he ignorant, he arrogant, he this, he that. Those are things that you heard from a Tobago perspective.
Right.
But let us also remember that apart from his contributions in politics, there were certain things that reflected bad, why he probably never got a second chance in term of office. If we are looking at the history, we have to be able to recognize those things. One of the things I would say that hurt, and Barry, this is where your point is very valuable, that Tobagonians did not understand this issue of this ring bang issue, is that the exploration of this water that should have bring back the revenue for Tobago now should have been literally bringing Tobago a level of revenue in Tobago, and at this point in time, it's nowhere there because again the structure.
We must do this. And we must do this self-autonomy discussion another time.
All right,
because I am making the point that this struggle for Tobago's autonomy in Tobago is a very deceptive one. It's all about characters and who love who. For example, everybody praised Robinson for it. The 76-81 position. When in fact Robinson walked out of the parliament, it was Murray who held his ground. The Express headline the next day was, Murray have his way. But they came back to Tobago, and because Robinson was more popular and everybody loved Robinson, they credit Robinson for all Murray work.
Yes.
We must discuss this thing honestly.
Mr. Skippy.
We must discuss this thing honestly.
Mr. Thomas, hold on. Just hold on here. Mr. Thomas, you brought me on the show to discuss the life of Mr. Hochoi Charles.
Well, let us discuss.
Hold on.
Hold on. You all choose to take it down this tangent.
The life of Mr. Hochoi Charles, the life of Basdio Pandi.
You ready to discuss it now? Well, let's do that.
It have one thing to discuss and one thing only.
What would Hochoi be known for and stand out for in Tobago?
It have one thing to discuss and one thing to discuss only. We have Act 40 of 1996. We have the fifth schedule. In the fifth schedule, education falls under our responsibilities, including curriculum. Yeah. The textbooks that the high school students are reading in our high schools supposed to chronicle all of this so that when we come onto Vox Populi to discuss 3 different topics, we don't find ourselves debating back, forth, right, and center.
I am not debating.
And once that happens...
I am not all over the place, you know. I am just... All I did is...
The show is almost finished.
All I did is simply say I don't agree with any position that Ochoy did anything meaningful.
And we wouldn't have needed you to agree if it was in the curriculum. So instead of discussing all the problems, let's discuss the solution.
I'm saying that because he then
and Mr. Lyndon Mack would have brought about the solution. We need to educate the youths. That's about it. Other than that, we'll be having these long, bombastic conversations.
So then we say that, so I'm ready to move on. So there's nothing we could agree on that Ochoy stands out for.
No. I will never say that.
Skippy.
I'm ready to move on. I've asked the question.
Yeah, we better move on because
everybody's just staring me in the face.
I do not agree that Ochoy Charles played a central role in Act 40 of 1996. Yeah. What I noticed is that there was no objection that Ochoy Charles did play a central role in Tobago's autonomy by calling the DRC, which would have turned the Tobago House of Assembly from a $350 million a year institution into
and I know you have done some phenomenal development work. I think he might have been responsible for creating this unit in local development. And they were building all these massive super roads in these rural areas and so.
We have some coinciding interests. We have some some stuff that we
and you see, that is the point.
No, I'm totally disappointed. Totally disappointed.
In what? That I only know two things.
No, hold on. If I know the show was going in this direction, I would have never come on the show. Yeah.
No, well, you could leave. No, I am not keeping you here. Yeah. If that is your position, leave.
You can.
Listen, gentlemen, let me say this. The purpose of discussion is that Barry.
We are here. Hold on. We are here all night. You are here all night. You don't like my position that I don't agree Ochoy played no real role in the Tobago's autonomy. You don't like that. And because you are advancing nothing that Ochoy could stand out for, and I must sit down here and sympathize with your disappointment. Well, I have said I don't know anything Ochoy have done in Tobago.
And that's fine.
I have heard about some roads he built. Right? I've heard about some roads he built. And outside of that, again, I really don't know what
Festival was started by Ochoy Charles.
I don't want to talk about Ringbang and Ada. Quite frankly,
that's fine.
One thing I'll credit him for, though, is the capping of the water wells through the Israeli satellite technology and so. I think that he had a project that he wanted to do with bottling water.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That was
lo and behold, when he raised it, he was ridiculed.
Yes.
But today, every Tom, Dick, Harry Lal, their son, their dog, and their brother have a bottled water company and so on.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Literally, we will agree to disagree. We will disagree to agree. Yes. And that's the level of maturity that we must stand to. You are not going to.
We don't have to have these conversations.
You are not going to agree with Nelson's point, and Nelson will not agree with Skippy's point, and we have to accept that. That's the purpose of discussion. Leroy and I disagree all the time. Let Leroy tell you, we disagree all the time on every subject matter possible.
I think I agree.
I tell you directly,
Leroy, on everything.
We disagree right now. Yeah. I am on the white, and Leroy is on the black way it comes to this current administration, and it's going to be, that's the way it's going to go.
But you know who was on my side when it comes to this administration? One of the last utterances that I heard from Mr. Ochoy Charles on a public platform was to complain that he had been given a job as the advisor to the chief secretary without pay, no money involved, right? And yet still, when he is calling that individual to give him advice, and Mr. Lyndon Mack, one thing I agree with Mr. Lyndon Mack, when it comes to current affairs, everybody could talk. You see, when Ochoy Charles talk, Tobago used to stop and listen. Because we know Ochoy Charles was not biased, for the most part, at least when it comes to the final years of his life, talking on political matters.
Yeah.
And he was ignored. And I would like to suggest that if he was not ignored, perhaps if his advice was sought by the chief secretary in the way that the rest of Tobago sought the advice of Ochoy Charles in times of trouble, perhaps he would not have died in a year when Tobago saw one of its highest murder rates, because you must remember he was a minister in the Ministry of National Security.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
At a time when Tobago used to have 1 and 0 murders per year, right? And we may also have not seen a situation where despite exponential growth in Trinidad's economy, we are seeing a 2% shrinkage in the economy here in Tobago. And so it is very important that we remember.
That have to do with the 2% shrinkage of the economy.
I'll tell you, it would have been nice if the guy that turned the Tobago House of Assembly. Let me finish. It would have been nice. It would have been nice. Remember who Ochai Charles is. That is the guy who led Tobago when the Tobago House of Assembly evolved from a $350 million institution to 7 times bigger, a $2+ billion institution with the DRC. Yeah. And to see he would have died in a situation whereby 20 years or so afterwards, instead of we going up, we're going down. Yeah, but we have dishonored Ochai Charles' legacy in such.
And that is the point. Everybody keeps saying the legacy. I keep asking, what is his legacy?
I will disagree with that. And you see, I don't want to. Let me say this: I am not in the business of mixing semantics with facts. Okay, we have a double standard in this country where we wait for our brightest and most brilliant persons to pass away and then we honor them. That is not my style of business. There was a chance to honor him when he was alive. He will never know of it whilst he is dead. And the most we can do now is pay him his respect and now move forward as a country. Learn what we have to learn and move forward. But this idea...
I think that Zia may have honored him in a minimal way, but nonetheless, by... notwithstanding, he said he didn't want it and so on. She insisted and said, no, you have served too long. Hold on, Leroy.
That's good.
And then she named a street, a lane, a street and so on.
That is also nothing. That is nothing. You know what we need to do to honor Mr. Ochai Charles? We honor Ochai Charles with love. Love is an action word, right? We honor Ochai Charles by actually doing things that show that we respect what we have learned from him. Why is it that this PHA administration, one of his legacies,
I don't know.
One of his legacies, as one of these gentlemen pointed out, is that he led up more than probably anybody else, except maybe Watson Duke Agiob.
Don't go back to tell me something about the money that go up and went down. We are here that.
Led Tobago's final attempt to get greater autonomy. And you know how you go about trying to get greater autonomy? Not by naming a road Ochai Charles. That don't give Tobago greater autonomy.
Now we're talking about honoring him, Leroy.
What we have to do is we have to work with the communities, right? We have to get involvement in the communities in bringing about a bill.
We have to try to save
Let me answer your question because
we have to try to save some time now.
Don't matter what you do, I'm going to have an opportunity to answer your question. Ochai Charles would have liked to see a bill, right?
Yeah, a bill
passed in Parliament. And the only way a bill will pass in Parliament to give Tobago greater autonomy is if you have consensus from the people of Tobago, like what Orville London attempted to do. And if you have consensus from all the political parties that hold offices in the Trinidad and Tobago space. And so that is what we need to work forward to doing if we want to honor Ochai Charles. Do you think the
best way to honor Ochai Charles is to produce a bill for Tobago's autonomy?
One that gets passed, because that bill is made with consensus from the people and the government and also from the different political parties in the Trinidad and Tobago
remember, consensus is going to be hard to get in Port of Spain with that Tobago.
But we got consensus in times past.
Interrupt you.
But we got it in times past.
Consensus would be difficult to get in Port of Spain with a Tobago position. Going Tobago, to get consensus and arrive at compromise, there aren't much interest to lobby. But when you reach in Trinidad, for example, in Tobago, we might have a PNM position, PDP position, TPP, a TPP position.
QTP?
TPP. Stop your nonsense.
I see QTP on the t-shirt.
You know who I'm talking about. I didn't see nobody t-shirt, no way.
So
you have these three, so that might be your three main political positions, right?
Right.
And then Well, forget the Chamber of Commerce in Tobago. They are a joke.
They don't have a
But
say in this matter.
that is the point.
So much.
They are a joke. But
UNCP and
hold on, now,
PPP.
hold on. But for want of a discussion, you get their position on the bill and so. So you don't have much interest to lobby here in Tobago. When you reach the Trinidad, you have to get the Syrian community, the Chinese community, the Indo community, the Mahasaba community, the Muslim community, the American chain. The point is there are just so much different interests you have to lobby in Trinidad that a Tobago position is often
Mr.
eroded.
Skippy.
Hold on, Leroy.
Yeah, sorry.
A Tobago position can be easily eroded when it lands.
That
in
is not true,
policy.
Mr. Skippy. Mr. Skippy, when Act 40 of 1996 was passed, as you would remember, there was no special majority. Therefore,
I'm
in
not
Parliament,
No,
there,
they need
and
special
as you
majority.
also know,
Hold on, they need
the
special.
Tobago House of Assembly
Oh God,
Act,
Leroy, hold on.
as is, can be passed by simple majority because it is not entrenched in the Constitution
What
other
nonsense
parts
is
of
that?
the Act.
What-
So can the Tobago House of Assembly Act not be
The Tobago
amended
House-
with simple majority? Did not the Prime Minister of Trinidad and
Oh,
Tobago,
Jesus.
Rowley, amend the Tobago House of Assembly Act in order for us to have 15 electoral districts without the consent of UNC? Did that not happen, Mr. Barrington Skippy? We can have it easily. For you to try to tell
So
the
they're ready
people
for
of
the
Tobago,
answer?
for you to tell the people of Tobago that it is difficult.
Oh,
You are not
caramba.
only lying, not only are you lying, but you are doing
Oh, God.
Tobago a disservice in doing so.
Leroy, you done?
It is not difficult.
Yeah, are you ready for the answer?
Yes. Well, I just gave it, but I'm ready for your point
Oh,
on the
Jesus
answer.
Christ. Nothing in the THA Act was amended for the purpose of the 15 seats.
Also, okay.
The Tobago Act is a constitutional position, and no simple majority can trifle with it. In fact, I would recall Ho Choi Chal was one of the persons that insisted upon its entrenchment.
Remember, you're talking to educated people.
Ho Choi Charles was one of the persons.
Is that true what you just said?
That
I thought he said the man had no legacy.
I never said that. I could go with what I remember.
Oh my
Ho Choi was one of the persons.
Oh my God.
But insisting on an entrenchment of an act, come on. There's not much to boast about. But Ho Choi was
Insisting on an entrenchment of an act is a very, very deep situation.
Ho Choi was
That's
one
why
of
called
the
entrenched.
Ho Choi was one of the persons that insisted on the entrenchment. So you can't trifle.
For good reason.
You can't trifle with an entrenched act. You could amend the EDC Act and that kind of thing.
Right. Yes, we agree on that.
You see, just listening to this discussion, you could tell that a number of research still has to be done in Tobago. Yes, now, allow me to make this point.
And you could make it as long as...
No.
Hold on.
I promise I'm not going to do
No,
that
hold
now,
on.
as well.
I want to say this. You could make it as long and as uninterrupted as Leroy made his.
I really want to say this.
Yeah.
Leroy, there are, in some circumstances, I agree with you that says if you truly really want to honor his memory, we need to have that bill passed into law. But how do we get there? We need to get there from an avenue of, one, educating all the persons in Tobago about the best interest of making this happen.
Yeah.
This is a Tobago this is not just a party politics mix. This is a civil rights issue. Trinidad and Tobago has signed on to international legislations under the United Nations. And where I stand right now, where it comes to our free economic right and determination, that is the path we will have to take if we wish to say we are ready to move forward as a Tobago people under the avenue of...
So you're saying that more than say we need more autonomy, we need to invoke this international human right.
This has to be
self-determination.
That's right.
So the conversation needs to...
And this is what I'm saying.
Perhaps abandon the term autonomy to say self-determination.
Which is even more stronger.
Self-determination.
And I'm saying that I think this administration, this is where they need to be focusing now. If we have... Because let me be factual. You know the conversation no one is saying in this conversation? Is that the Tobago 1996 Act 40, even right now that we are talking about the money that Tobago is getting, even the current administration now does not want to admit that the money that we are getting from Trinidad cannot maintain Tobago.
It can't.
And we have to face the reality.
Whose fault is that?
No.
Listen,
Hold on. This is not about fault. This is
Leroy, I would insist on some discipline.
Leroy, hold on. Hold
I
on,
would
sir.
insist on some discipline.
Because even in what you are talking about, 6% still cannot maintain.
6.8%?
Still cannot maintain
That is
Tobago's business.
nonsense you're talking. You mean to tell me
Mr.
Judge.
$4 billion?
Leroy.
You know how much time
Mr. Judge.
goes
Hey,
into for
that
twice?
big body
Mr.
thing ain't
Judge.
working on me, no.
Two
Hey, that
twice.
big body thing ain't working on me.
Two
You
goes
have to
into
relax and
four
let him
twice. You
make his
cannot
point.
tell me that
Mr.
$4 billion
Judge.
will not make a big difference in the Tobago space.
Mr. Judge.
Leroy, you're being
Mr.
rude.
Judge.
Stop
People
it.
on the
You're
other
being
side.
Mr. Judge,
disruptive.
let me ask
Stop
a
it.
question.
So wait, you saying that $2 billion and $4 billion have no difference?
I am not saying.
Because they're educated.
I am not saying
You
that.
ever watch Lyndon talk
Hold
about
on.
stupidness
I
here?
am saying to allow him to make his point and be respectful. That is what I'm saying. To be parliamentary. That is what
But you would have said at the beginning
I
that
am
we have
saying-
in this discussion, not in the traditional sense.
No, I never said that.
You said that before the
I said
camera
we have been a
started rolling.
discussion. It's not an interview.
Right.
And one would expect a modicum of some decency
Right.
Exactly.
at
Right.
minimum, right? He's making a point. Please
Okay.
allow him to make his point.
Make your point and then I will
take
then remind
notes.
people
Take
otherwise.
notes and then you will
I will take
respond.
notes and then I will
Now
respond.
let me get to the reality of this thing. Okay? We are of this belief that you may say, Leroy, that $6 billion could maintain Tobago.
$6 million?
$4 billion could maintain Tobago. Leroy, what is the current inflation rate in Trinidad and Tobago right now? Do you know?
No.
So how are we talking from
Educate
a position?
me, what is
How
the current
are we talking
inflation
from a
rate in
position
Trinidad?
where we do not know? If we are looking now from, let's go back from 1983 to
Is the
now.
inflation rate 200%? Because that is what it would take
Sir,
for $4 billion not to
It's
equate to more than
17.1%.
Right,
How
thank
much?
you.
That's the inflation rate now. 17.1.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I'm saying that if you are looking at one, this is not a charity. This is running the Tobago affairs, ensuring that we can maintain our marina, we can maintain our boats. If we have, we are moving in a discussion that says, what are we doing to start our own national airline? It is going to take money.
Aye.
And you cannot tell me directly that $4 billion of the national population, when we just lost $5 billion from a heritage and stabilization fund in 2022, that is 913 million.
What you just said.
So it is $913.5 million that we would have lost in 2022 from the heritage and stabilization fund. You can't correct me on the statistics.
Take one pin for me, Lyndon. So I want to ask Leroy. How much did and Barry, if you remember, how much did the feasibility study for the rapid rail cost?
I have no idea. However, I would like to respond to what Mr.
I was invited to this program to speak about Mr. Charles.
But you're not doing it, so we can't sit down and watch you when your face.
I know.
When you write,
Leroy, hold on. Let me bring this thing back together. How much did the feasibility study for the rapid rail cost? Well, I'm saying to you, it was more than $4 billion.
Right.
And that is for one project where some people write a feasibility study. Are you seriously saying in a country where you could spend more than that on a document, you cannot give an island with 60,000 people more than that? But that is not what we're discussing.
Mr. Skippy,
Leroy, we are not discussing that.
You said I would have a chance to respond to Mr. Mack's statement. Did you not promise that on
we
it?
made it. Listen, we made the point on how do we
Did
honor,
you or did you
how
not
do we honor Ho Choi
say
Chan.
that I would have
I
an
agreed with
opportunity?
you that the best way to
Did you or did you not? As
Yeah, and I
moderator?
changed my mind as living people.
So you are
do.
not a man of your word. Let's move on.
Yeah, I changed my mind
Right.
because I suspect you're going to.
So $4 billion is equal to $2 billion.
I don't.
Let's move on.
I just want to
Tobago getting $4 billion makes no difference.
I just want to interject.
Yeah.
Because it's to to the point that with the 4 billion that he's talking about, it's a part of the struggle of what Mr. Charles was
fighting.
right? You get the $4 billion.
Yes.
I just want to use the example of the present chief secretary when he had talks with an airline to fly direct flight here. What happened?
What happened?
No, hold on. When I said that, I said that for you to say that.
Continue.
Even if we had the $4 billion and we could have subsidized the airline, the President Assembly could have subsidized the airline to bring direct flight in. The Tobago House Assembly is powerless. We have no power. So with $4 billion that you're speaking about, if you don't have the necessary power to create policies, and so the money of no use to you, it comes like when we were in COVID. Everybody who had plenty money couldn't do nothing with the money if you wanted to travel to go to health because the borders locked down. So that is a correspondent. We have no power to spend.
And in support of
I wonder if I'll get a chance to respond to this statement.
And in support of what Barry is saying, I take note, and all of this is in honoring Ho Choi Charles. We must get these things done. We must achieve these things to properly honor Ho Choi Charles' legacy and name. That's my position. So we have an act of parliament that say we are responsible for transportation, matters of sea and air and so, transportation. And the chief secretary put up his hand and said, well, I have some preliminary discussions with an airline and thing, and the announcement would roll out when, the dots, the I's are dotted and the T's are... And a Port of Spain institution put up their hand and say, we want to warn them to be careful up there, and they must talk to we first.
Right, so they're getting 4 billion. What the 4 billion? What do we do with the 4 billion?
Notwithstanding that we have an act of parliament that tell we that is one of our responsibility here in Tobago. So I think that the way to honor Ho Choi, to honor bringing this topic to an end, we want our pan day now.
Without me responding.
So in order
you made plenty comments.
Ask me direct questions.
Hold on. I just want to make it. No, hold on, Leo. You'll get the hold on, Leroy. I just want to emphasize on Skippy. If you want to honor somebody, that means they did something. You flip-flop. You flip-flopping. You flip-flopping.
I am saying Ho Choi Charles have done nothing significant.
That is insulting.
Oh, God.
Very insulting.
Oh, Lord.
Well, I mean,
I hear you.
That is his view.
But that is my view. I am saying that Ho Choi Charles have done nothing significant or meaningful to me. And I keep asking all of you, okay, you see, I don't want to... Let
me move on.
My point, it's insulting, and when I'm clearing it up now, we want to...
Because you might get more insulting.
No, because one may say, well, he provided tertiary education to students here from the island, and okay, I think it was an excellent position. You look at what you want for your development plan. I think Vanas James led that when they had PDRI.
Yes.
And they say, well, we need medicines, and so because Tobago is strong with people in the not modern science, more administrative and management, and so we need engineers and medicine, and Ho Choi Charles came up with a program with that. How much of those students were evicted from their universities abroad?
Why? Why they was evicted?
Because of lack of paying the school fees. And
why was lack of paying his fees? And that is one of the reasons why he put one of the clause.
So you're saying it never happened?
Dispute? I never say it never happened.
So I'm saying that may be a good idea, but how much people suffered and have a bad taste in their mouth about it?
Yes, but why they had to suffer and had a bad taste in their mouth? It's because he had the money and he didn't want to pay.
Gentlemen,
because he had the money and his administration had the money and he don't want to pay.
Your sisters?
Mr. Nelson, I'm not surprised that Barrington Skippy would say that Ho Choi did not make any significant...
Probably want to move on to your boy, Basio Pani. Better we move on to your boy,
Mr. Nelson, I am agreeing with you. I am not surprised that Mr. Barrington Skippy would suggest that Ho Choi Charles did not make any great significant changes and positive changes in the Tobago space. Because if I could hear persons telling me that Tobago getting $4 billion is not significant better than Tobago getting $2.5 billion. Then Ho-Choi Charles turning the Tobago House of Assembly from a $350 million institution to a $2-point-something billion institution, which is 7 times more than what it was when he came in. Then I will expect you to say he did not do much. But I will say money is the solution to a lot of the things out here. Money is the solution to a lot of the things out here.
Leroy,
and
can I ask
we cannot scoff at money.
I didn't want to get in because I came here to discuss Ho-Choi Charles. But when I hear you,
and the only
when I hear this man talking,
the last thing I'll say, the only reason that we do not acknowledge that Tobago having $4 billion is better than Tobago having 2-point-something billion is because it was a PNM idea, and that is bias.
Leroy, you have to put that in. You have to put that money in context. That if you have $4 billion, the most you can do is recurrent expenditure. We're talking about development. Hold on, I allow you to speak. I allow you to speak from a development point of view. Look, for example, the examples are there.
$4 billion is
hold on, but you may have the money and you can't do nothing.
It was 2.1 billion.
Leroy, allow the man to speak.
Allow me to speak.
So he could clear his
Mr. Man, $4 billion is not recurrent expenditure. Our recurrent expenditure
said that?
you just said it. You just said that if we had $4 billion, the reality of the situation is that Tobago's recurrent expenditure or the THA's recurrent expenditure is give or take $100 million, $2 billion. What? It is twice our recurrent expenditure.
Mr. Man, hold on, I never said that.
You said it. The people them could just, if you're on your phone, just take the little button and scroll back and see if Barry Nelson did not say that $4 billion would just be recurrent expenditure.
Let me say this now.
That way you mustn't be biased, you'll talk stupidness on TV.
Okay, Leroy, let me say this now. I'm not interested in that. But what you're engaging in there is that you're starting the major and minor.
But I don't need to...
$2 billion is minor?
No, hold on.
I'm not concerned about that.
Mr. Thomas?
I'm asking and I realize nobody was able to list any except attack me for making the point that hold on. I don't agree that Ho-Choi Charles did anything phenomenal.
Let me very be unbiased here.
$4 billion and $2 billion is the same in your book.
Barry, I would say that I don't think you were given a fair chance to list Ho-Choi Charles' simple accomplishments. I am saying that as a person sitting on the show tonight. And if we are going to be fair to the man, let's be fair about the memory that we remember. And if we are looking at the avenue of documented facts, let's look at the documented facts. This is why we will continue.
I'm giving you an opportunity.
Well,
say no loudly. Say no loudly. And stop and avoid me being accused and not being fair to give it to you.
Mr. Thomas, allow...
say you're not doing it loudly.
I think you should allow him to...
He said he's not doing it. You didn't see him saying that, Leroy?
I want to see you do it.
I don't have to, personally, I don't have to say the many positive things that Mr. Ho-Choi done in Tobago. The whole of Tobago, I know that Tobago. But I just want to get back to...
I'm from Tobago and I'm saying I don't know anything. I remember Ring Bang and Ada. I think Ring Bang and Ada was two phenomenal waste of money. I remember when Ho-Choi were doing it, there were people here on the island not being paid, and I remember those things.
You see, Barry Nelson wants to...
Those things are actual correct information. I'm not saying no, but again, listen, and let me be very factual, and you all might not agree with this. There is no prime minister in Trinidad and Tobago that has not passed through Trinidad and Tobago that will not face some scrutiny. Basdio Pandey also has scrutiny to face. I imagine
quite a lot, yes. I imagine quite a lot.
Facts. Right? That's the fact.
Yeah.
And we must recognize those things. But again, there is a community. We tend to be hypocritical when it comes to these things, and we only tend to remember the good things. That is what will happen. You will remember the good things and you will remember the bad things.
And that is how $4 billion is not greater than $2 billion, which is exactly why. Let me tell you why. Because Mr. Nelson today gave an illustration of how we handicap ourselves when we decide to be biased. He wants to agree with me that Ho-Choi Charles was very influential and brought about a lot of positive change. But he does not want to acknowledge that Tobago getting exponentially more money than it gets is a good thing, because if he acknowledges
where the $4 billion idea came from?
If he acknowledges
Where
that...
did the 4 billion?
Okay, let me answer that question. Let me answer the question.
You could answer it short.
Short.
Yeah.
The Dispute Resolution Commission, right? They found that Tobago should get 4.03% minimum, right? As a result of, at the time, Tobago having 4.03% of the population. However, because we had been getting so much less than our share or equal share of the pie, then we fell behind when it comes to development. And so because we fell behind when it comes to development, they said that they would add another possible 3% to the budget so that Tobago could catch up in development over the years, right? However, we never got the plus 3%. We always get closer to the 4.
Who said we could get $4 billion and we're not pursuing it?
The Joint Select Committee, right?
God.
That sat.
You
don't want to hear it? No.
No, because hold on.
That worked
Leroy,
on the two bills,
hold on.
They would have made it so that Tobago could get $4 billion. But the people who now form the THA Executive Council decided to reject the bill when all they needed to do was to ask for amendment of those two bills so that Tobago could get recognition for its share of the marine territory and the overall territory that would be Tobago's had we been independent. And the Joint Select Committee gave the option of that happening through a simple memorandum of understanding. You asked the question, I answered, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You answered nothing. Who proposed giving us $4 billion? That is a simple answer. A simple
question. The PNM government.
Okay, so the PNM proposed it.
Yes.
Who prevented us from getting it?
UNC and QTP now. Who is now QTP?
Who's QTP?
QTP doesn't see the T-shirt. QTP you know with Fali as the political leader. Fali and them, them who reject it.
Big man.
With the UNC, which is your party.
Big man if you want to.
Did the UNC and Fali and them not reject the bills?
Christ.
Did that not happen? Mr. Skippy, you are an academic. Do not embarrass yourself on camera. Did it not happen that the UNC and Mr. Fali Chavez Agustin and other company called for that bill to be rejected, which deprived Tobago of no less than $1.5 billion per year, including this fiscal year that just ended?
Finished?
Did that not happen?
Will you finish?
I asked a question and answer it.
No, you finished flapping
I finished.
Right.
Answer the question.
Let me go back to what I was asking you. So you're saying that the PNM offered in a bill
yes.
$4 billion guaranteed.
PNM government, yes.
Hold on, where PNM government? Who the hell they gonna be again?
Right. No, it's not PNM party. It's PNM government.
So the government led by Rowley, or Manning, which one?
The one led by Rowley.
Offered in a bill $4 billion guaranteed.
6.8%, which equates to over $4 billion.
Listen, I'm not sure if you're not.
The answer is yes.
Hold on, I'm not sure if you're not job interview.
The answer is
and
yes.
you feel it's important to sound
the answer
that
is
way.
yes.
That's not necessary for me.
6.8 million percent equates to just over $4 billion. Silly, so you disagree? 6.8% of the national budget is not just over $4 billion. Barrington, you're making yourself a fool.
Because I'm trying to.
Barrington, you're better than that, man.
You're done?
That is not academic.
No, you're done.
Why are you putting yourself on that level?
Stop trying to personalize nonsense.
You're making yourself a fool, Barrington.
It's a very straight question I'm asking you, and I'll appreciate something.
I'm asking you a straight question. Does 6.98% not equate to over $4 billion?
Leroy, so that was all right. So that was what else was in the bill? That okay, the $4 billion. Okay, no. The $4 billion was what else was in the bill?
I want to establish
what else was in the bill that was favorable to the Tobago? So you're only looking at money.
One of the things that was in the bill that was favorable is that one of the two bills,
short span
one of the two bills would have been entrenched into the Constitution. Therefore, it would take more than a simple majority.
One of the most important things is that we need to define what is Tobago and what is Trinidad.
And they offered us that.
What they offer?
The Joint Select Committee in their 700-page report said that if Tobago wants to be recognized, it simply calls for a memorandum of understanding. But because certain persons were too lazy, they did not read the thing properly to know that.
Why is you always think it's necessary to personalize everything? So let me go back to what I was asking you. So the PNM offered $4 billion.
6.8%, which equates to $4 billion.
But 6.8% had to be 6.8%. Hold on, guys. Hold on. So that's right. The national budget is not cast in stone.
Correct. So, that is why I'm not agreeing to the $4 billion.
And that is why I am asking you if the PNM government agreed in a bill that there's a minimum amount of money they'll get, that would be $4 billion.
This fiscal year, it would be 4 billion, yes.
Leroy, you know, no,
Guys,
just
please allow me to finish.
Over 4 billion.
I just want to say,
Just take a point. So that $4 billion is not a guaranteed sum every fiscal year.
It is not a guaranteed sum every fiscal year.
That is one.
That's correct.
So, but nonetheless, it's probable based on the national budget, right?
Yes.
Right, but
and that was that was offered by the PNM.
That's correct.
And you applaud them for that.
I applaud them.
And I do too, because it's a lot of money. It's more than
a lot of money.
It's more than what we get.
yeah, but hear the irony of the whole thing.
Barry, let me
all right, go ahead.
And the second point that you want with keep disrupting the show all night to make. I agree with you. It's more money than we get it. Everybody like more money.
Life changing.
And then the second point I was trying to get before you.
Is Barry.
No, we
don't blame me. Is Barry.
6 points.
Right.
You. So, and that was in the bill.
Yes.
And then you said it went before the Joint Select Committee.
It went to the Joint Select Committee first.
Okay, yes, right, yes. It went
why is that on that back? You know the procedures.
It went to the Parliament.
You was almost a lawyer.
It went to the Parliament through the procedure. It went to the Parliament through the procedure.
Yes.
Right, it went to the Parliament. Good. So it went to the Parliament. And we don't have it because there was an objection to the bill.
Exactly.
Right. You do know that Mr. Charles was one of the person who objected to the bill. And the objection to the bill...
And he dead wrong for it.
The objection to the bill is over the 6 mile issue.
Yes.
Right? The 6 nautical...
No, that wasn't his only objection. You're lying.
Well, it's the fundamental objection to the bill.
No.
It's the fundamental
Mr. Hochoy Charles and Mr. Pali Chavez Augustine would have written a letter to the parliamentarians stating why they do not want them to support the bill. And that was not the fundamental reason. They had other reasons.
What was the fundamental reason?
They gave a list of reasons. If you want, I could give you some of those things on the list.
Yeah.
One of which, right, they wanted the THA to be constructed in such a way that the chief secretary would be able to appoint into his executive council almost an executive council that would be almost entirely non-assembly persons. That would have been a betrayal to the persons who presently sit in that THA administration.
Well, that may be fundamental. Okay,
and
no, move on to the next one.
It would have been a betrayal of the Tobago people and a betrayal of democracy.
So that might be fundamental to you. It may not.
It is fundamental to democracy.
It's not fundamental to anybody else.
It is fundamental to democracy.
Okay, right. Okay,
because the people you elect should be allowed to form the government in the Tobago space.
Fundamental to democracy. Yes. So you do not think that asking for more than this, is it nautical mile or regular ordinary mile?
Nautical mile.
So you think that asking for demanding more than 6 nautical miles for the Tobago space is not fundamental?
It is absolutely necessary that we get recognition for our entire marine territory. Absolutely.
Do you think it's fundamental?
Very fundamental.
And you accept that if it's fundamental, then the hydrocarbons and all of that would be included in it.
Yes.
Would be Tobago's own.
That's correct.
To produce, manage, and spend and develop.
You
agree with that?
Yeah.
You don't have to agree who's doing it.
Yes.
You would agree that it's too
I am with you. We are in full agreement.
Who we wish to do it, we select them here through our democratic processes. Yeah?
We are in full agreement.
All right.
And see, but I just want to make one point on the 4 billion thing. Leroy, if the PNM government, who is power now, wanted to give Tobago $4 billion, you know that under the present dispensation with the dispute commission, they could the lower point up to the higher point, the 4 million fall between that thing.
That is correct.
So what is the point? So what is so good about it?
Would you like me to answer that question?
And then if the budget,
would you like me to answer that question?
No, we don't.
You don't want me to answer it because he's wiser than you.
No, we have to discuss other things.
Let me tell you what the point is.
Listen.
The point is that when you put it into law, you don't have a situation 10 years down the road where we go back to $2 billion.
Listen,
and so this government gave us an opportunity to never have to deal with a budget that is barely greater than the required expenditure.
But that's not what you said before, because you're saying that the position is that it will be hinged on the national budget.
That is the answer
and if the national
long-term solution.
Leroy,
in contrast,
now I understand your passion, but I'm saying if the,
Yeah, because we're too educated.
no, I
for this.
understand your passion, but I'm saying,
Lyndon Mack said that 2
hold on
billion
now.
and 4 billion is the same.
why do you
And
personalize
educated-
everything? Why everything is about personality?
It's who say it?
We have moved
No,
on
Lyndon
from
Mack.
that. We have moved.
Who agree with you? No,
Leroy,
you?
Leroy, we have moved on from that.
Let me-
And I am saying that if listen, it could be 4 billion, it could be 40 billion. The point is, it's that it's a percentile of the
Yes.
national budget.
Definitely.
And the national budget. So when the national budget
Present, yeah.
it recedes from where it is, then we're not really guaranteed.
I don't guarantee.
There is no guarantee.
So what?
So if there are some,
So you take that.
So if
So
there
you
are some
take-
objections to the bill to say that they must, no, I agree with you. It's more
Yeah,
money.
yeah.
But all I'm saying is that we must find a way to create some certainty upon it.
Which is why they create the bills.
So if there are objections to the bills to say no, we require we require some certainty on it.
Yes.
Listen, let me
Let me
anything
let
wrong
me
with that
address that.
objection?
If you all would, if you all are okay,
Leroy,
if you all don't mind,
Leroy,
we moderate
Leroy,
and ask
Leroy.
a question.
No,
Leroy,
Leroy, no.
let me-
I didn't
You didn't
ask
ask
it.
a
No,
question?
I didn't require.
Okay, well, then there's
I didn't
no
ask it
require
for
for
an answer. I
answer.
didn't ask
let
it
me
for an
let me
answer.
just
for
let me
answer.
just
Since
share
you
to you
moderated,
how
ask a
how
question.
sad this
I asked a
song.
question, but I didn't ask it
This
for an
song's so sad because to hear someone think that it's just about $4 billion clearly shows you they don't know what the hell they are talking
Also,
about.
4 billion is a
Let me
small
say,
number.
let me say this to you.
We agree to a lot of money.
We
We
are
have to
talking.
respond to it. A lot of people
We
to
are
say that.
talking about setting a precedent
We are
whereby
talking about hypocrisy because
Tobago-
PNM or fight
can
or
I-
reject
can
it
I-
and now
can I-
Tobagoans are
can I-
suffering.
can I finish,
We cannot
sir?
afford groceries
Can I
because
finish?
persons made an
Leroy,
idiotic
can I
decision.
finish? Can I finish?
It's a no gain
Can
among that.
can I
That is
finish?
it.
Leroy.
Can I finish without you
No, you
interrupting?
cannot finish.
No,
because
Leroy, you have to conduct yourself.
No,
You have to
every
conduct
time I
yourself.
speak, you interrupt me.
let me-
I will
let me-
interrupt
no,
you too.
no, no,
Let me
come
You are the
my-
moderator.
No,
you have
I wanna say-
You
abdicated your
telling
authority.
that man.
Let me say
You
present
telling that
mind
man.
to the
I am
community,
telling him he cannot
and I
finish.
take my leave
Yeah.
from the show
Yeah.
Take
because
your leave from the
I
show.
mean at the end of the day
Until I can take
no,
it, because I
no,
will not
Leroy.
allow you to finish.
No, Leroy, that
Because
is
you're talking nonsense.
we
no,
are
Leroy, that is
dealing
no,
with
no, no.
a situation
Why do you
whereby
personalize everything? Why do you do that?
Conduct yourself. You're on a show.
So when I speak, you could interrupt me and I can interrupt. I'm
But
interrupting
you
you.
made
now.
your point, and you made your point about the $4 billion. I think it's
And we
not
say we're going to move on from it now, so?
Yeah. But
It's
he has
educated people on
but
the
he
other
has
side
a
of that
view to
camera,
make.
you know.
He has a view to make.
Well, make a point.
It is very sad to see that in
That
2024
Lyndon Mack thinks that 4 billion and
really
2 billion is the same. The same Lyndon Mack that came here and tell me that Farley may not have said the thing in the voice note because of artificial intelligence.
No, let's bring the show to an immediate end.
Can I
Thank
finish?
you very much.
Can I finish?
No, let's take a break. Yeah, let's take a break.
Same Lyndon Mack.
No, Leroy, you have to
But
conduct
artificial
yourself.
No, all interrupting me, I interrupting all it.
So you
The Division of Settlements, Public Utilities and Rural Development has relocated its Strong Point office to Glen Road in Scarborough to better serve you, our clients. Our main office is located at the corner of Glen Road and Glen Road Branch Number 1, the building formerly occupied by Costa. Our grant and electrical inspectorate services can be accessed at Number 2 Montessori Drive in Glen Road, Building 1 and 2.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the commentators, guest, and host. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the policy or the views held by Tobago Updates or this network. Tobago Updates or this network cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.
Lyndon, make your point.
I think
And just remain focused and talk to the camera. That is what you have to do.
that's fine. I think it's very, very sad to know that we are here discussing the avenue of a Tobago Autonomy Bill and understand that proper infrastructure has to be put into place, and we just think it's about the avenue of money. And if we don't understand what has happened in the history, we're doomed to make the same mistakes again. We are looking at an avenue that says, how do we create our own central bank if we have to, so that we're talking about the avenue of development, getting the marine space that belongs to us, working in collaboration with all the entities that is coming to get our mineral resources to sell it back. These are conversations that must be done. How do we bring international investors here without the avenue of Trinidad interrupting? This conversation is greater than $4 billion. If you just think it's just about a $4 billion, then you just do not understand the avenue of what we are trying to achieve for the avenue of every Tobagonian. The recurring expenditure alone just for an airline every month costs money, and it doesn't just cost I'm not saying literally that $2 billion is greater than $4 billion. I'm saying that we have to look at what we are trying to develop. We have a history, Barry, that shows that in the avenue of two oil booms, we could go back as far as the Eric William legacy, where there is so much corruption into the avenue of bringing about our own airline. I don't know if you remember that, but we had where they were dealing with the avenue of the McDonnell planes and the other. We had big corruption that took place that saw our government embezzling funds. We have to recognize that. Who creates the oversight when we are managing that? And then who is to be answered to, so that every Tobagonian can understand that their tax-paying dollars is not going into some sham. It's not just about money. It's about the process of management. We are talking about creating a government that is ready to lead the Tobago people forward. It's not just about the money. It's about the infrastructure. And what we are saying is, if you do not have proper infrastructure, then all it's going to happen is you might get the $4 billion, but then I had to go back to Trinidad all the time to get $4 billion, and then the eyes of Trinidadians will be Tobago. And what we producing? We have no manufacturing companies on the ground. When you walk into the groceries every single month, who is doing the responsibility of manufacturing this food? Is it the food that have to come into Tobago from Trinidad, where businessmen could mark up the food price to a certain amount of percent? It's more than that, and you have to understand that.
And by the
it's
way,
not $4
we
billion
may not have a manufacturing sector in Trinidad either.
We have 5 minutes, right?
So what they do is that they usurp all our foreign exchange.
Of course,
Pretend to be
I want to
manufacturers.
address
that is correct.
Pretend to be manufacturers, but they really import the product
That's
from
correct.
overseas.
That's correct.
And bottle and package them.
That's correct. We are not.
While they take up all our foreign
And that's raw
exchange
material.
and pretend to be
Exactly.
manufacturers.
So we have to look at those things. How do we establish on the ground on the ground that says our men can be able to store their food there? The greater avenue of production should be. Could we start 50 manufacturing companies in Tobago if we are ready, and then look at the avenue of exporting? Tobago were exporters. We exported bread, we exported fish. We were exporters. How do we create that kind of society again? And this is why I'm saying the current THA now has a big task to undergo. And that leadership must be driven with real conversation that allows the Tobago, that is not, you have 40% of the Tobagonians working for the THA, but how do we start the manufacturing companies on the ground? How do we create the avenue of budgets to allow our farmers to mass produce, create our own? This is the conversation we need to be having in a bigger context. I look at the THA now, Barry, this is my last point. Yes. And when we look at the avenue of venture capital in Tobago right now cannot assist. If they have to little assist, properly 5 entrepreneurs. Don't forget me, I know business about the show that they had. They looking at who persons were coming on to show to get money. We are talking about the avenue of manufacturing of products that could be released from Tobago. If we're talking about directly producing flour, how do we get there? Breadfruit is one avenue.
The breadfruit products there.
How do we get to the place that says we need to be manufacturing and export?
These were things you always hear Charles talking about. They were never achieved. I guess Barry.
Charles is not the only person who will talk about it.
I'll come to you, Leroy. But I guess Barry.
You see, remember I made my opening point that Mr. Charles never had time to lead because he always had to fight battles. Fight battles.
Yeah.
From our own Tobagonian. Because they never understand the struggle.
Right.
Because some of us never understand the struggle. In order for people on an island to move forward and to have an identity, to realize their culture, to reach their full potentials, certain groundwork and certain things have to be achieved. You can't go and move ahead if you don't have no control of yourself and the space that you control.
That is the exact thing Charles would have
right.
would have said, that we have no power on the island.
We have no
power on the island, and because we have no power on the island,
so
we cannot create that.
So that was the struggle, and in order, so you always had to fight that battle from within the people of Tobago, because people did not understand, and a large amount of us still don't understand. We want jobs, we want houses, we want better roads, but that don't come so. That come without with getting a fair share of the resources that is in our territorial and in our waters.
Exactly.
And without that, Leroy talk about people can't get to buy groceries and so forth.
So the politicians who promised me the job and the houses, they didn't know that before?
Who are the politicians?
Listen, I'm talking about politicians generally.
Right.
That they say things.
Right.
And then when it's time to govern, they sound like Barry.
Go ahead.
I just want
exactly.
to put
I would like to say something
because
about exactly where
because part of the problem is that we have an institution now called the Tobago Assembly, with actually, for example, you had a problem with jet skis and so forth. Just that the Tobago House Assembly cannot implement a policy if we are to Store Bay or Pigeon Point as far as jet skis concerned.
Would it be fair for me to describe the Tobago House Assembly as a glorified county council?
I agree with you. So that was it. That is very strong. So that when Hochoy became the first chief secretary, the Act of 40 wasn't that perfect, but was something to build up.
Yeah, it
was like something in progress.
And you said he had
and as years go on, and we saw the shortfalls in many areas, then we improve on it. But then, as I said, he didn't get that time. He was leader of the assembly and was leader of the party, but he didn't get enough time to lead. He lost the election.
How much time you think was fair enough for him?
What?
How much time you think would have been fair time for him?
Right.
Sufficient time for him then? In
order, a second term would have gotten the people to understand. Because Hocha was way above us, way above. It takes about 4 or 5 years for me to understand the vision.
I understand.
And the thing that Hocha was way ahead of us.
Sorry for interrupting you. See how it's done, Leroy? You say sorry and excuse on this thing. That is my friend. Behave yourself. Sorry for Leroy, I'm coming to you. But sorry for interrupting you. I wanted to make the point that how does the political leadership of a THA explain that to the people? Because the people, hear me out. Because I understand what you're saying, I might have been devil's advocate. But I understand that Hochoy was stifled by Pandey and all of that. I remember telling you when Robinson was ascended to cabinet, to presidency, Morgan Job and Manjon, realized Manjon was a UNC candidate after, but he came out the NAR. Morgan Job, UNC, they are making the point to say that I know there was some personal internal issues with the NER. So I could accept that Ochoy had some challenges. I accept that. I've just been devil's advocate. I accept that. And the 2 challenges he had, Pandey sent home, Palmer and all of them, and some of the dissenters. Having said that, I accept the challenges. But he was voted out significantly. I think that might have been the time London win.
No, he 2001, London came in on an 8-4
right
thing.
So,
and then thereafter, yeah.
Right, so it was the time London they win. Yeah? 2001,
yeah,
right,
2001.
London win. The people that caused London to win, they are old people now. Most of them, yeah?
Them, they know that 30, them are 38 to 40.
No, I'm not making any, I'm not making like any derogatory thing. 30 to 40 in 2023 is old.
Older, yes.
It's old, yeah.
Yes.
And why I make that point is that this generation of, in other words, let me put it this way, let me withdraw old to say. Say I am all grain, I kill me there as a youth man, I have the reality to know that I'm old. People I thought was baby, I believe like yesterday I hold them.
Older than?
Old is 22 and 23, older that gave me ticket in the road when I driving, police ticket. People getting older. That era that got impatient with Charles and couldn't wait on a vision.
Right.
They were not millennials. We have a group of millennials now who have, I almost said equally.
No, that's so true.
We have a group of millennials now that have less patience than those people had. So, a politician struggle and his wars, whether it be internal parties, is no longer an excuse to the population.
I agree.
That's the point I want to make.
Just excuse it.
And that's why I keep being devil's advocate and saying, well, tell me what he did.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the millennials now, they are not concerned about your struggles.
Yeah.
Because when you came for my vote, and I say me, meaning the millennials, you did not tell me, and it would be contingent on some struggles I predict.
That is a very fair,
exactly
very fair point.
So when I start to plan my life that I'll vote for you and I expect you to win, and I start to walk around with your T-shirts, and I start to put up your banners, I start doing millennial things to assist you to win your election, because, in fact, in other words, I start now hinge my future on when you win based on this promise you made and that promise you made. So by this year I'll get a house based on what you tell me. Because you tell me. And everybody, I just using terms, what politicians do. Everybody who deposit $1,000 in 3 years will get a house because and they use when you understand, they use economic jargons and fiscal jargon. So in other words, people these millennials, they take you at your word. And when you cannot deliver, they have less patience, Barry, than the people.
All right, my final point before Leroy.
I just wanted to make that point.
That's my final point.
So it doesn't mean Ochoy was bad. Leroy, we coming to you.
That's one final point. On that point.
So it doesn't mean Ochoy was bad. And I was just being devil's advocate. It don't mean Ochoy was bad.
Make the next point.
No, Leroy, you would have the point and then I'll close. It doesn't mean Ochoy was bad. It just means that the people did not have patience with his struggles.
Right, and this is one of the great legacy of Ochoy Charles. One of the great legacy because Ochoy was factual and truth. He always tell the people of Tobago, the people at the island of Tobago cannot move forward until we get this autonomy. And he was honest. That is what of this legacy, being honest and straightforward, to tell the people of Tobago that until we get some follow-up, so that we could create policies, we as a people at our island cannot catch up or move forward.
So as I said, I was only being devil's advocate.
But I hope so.
And you understand, and you understand why now, Because as I said, listen, say what you all want because I suspect you all 40 and 40 something, so you want to still feel young, and that is okay. The people who voted for London is old people now. And they didn't have the patience with Charles in one term. And these millennials...
And they pay the price.
And they
paying the price for that.
And these, perhaps...
We are paying the price.
Perhaps, but these millennials now, they have less patience than those people. So the point is, it is no longer an excuse for politicians to come and tell people these are my struggle. And the point is, if autonomy is our struggle and is the struggle for political administrations,
Right.
then tell the people, listen, there is no point in us discussing any future at the moment. We'll just have to engage in some recurrent business. But mobilize yourself to join me and let us struggle once and for all for autonomy. And perhaps if that is what we need to do to honor Charles, then let's do
And
it.
that was one of his mantra, one way, one voice. Everybody in Tobago cannot speak with it, but once the majority of us speak with that one common goal, 3/4 or 4/5 of the problem in terms of getting ourselves is going to. We can have half here and half here.
Leroy.
Mr. Nelson, everybody, I must say that
Closing comments.
one of the
not
things,
to respond
one
to
of the,
nobody,
one of the things here, not to,
Yeah,
to
it's
respond
up
to
to your
anybody,
closing
but one of the
comments,
ways that we could go forward, even despite our differences, etc., is that we should find commonalities, right? Everybody here would have said certain things, but there are also things that we all agree on.
Yeah.
And so when we find commonalities, we could go forward irrespective of our differences. That being said, I am in full agreement when I hear one of the panelists say that it is deeper than money. It is more important than just money. If you look at the 5th schedule, they show us the things that we are responsible for. If you look at the 6th schedule, they show us the things that we are not responsible for. If we want to have a discussion about whether 6th schedule items should be in the 5th schedule, we could have that discussion. But it is my opinion that things like civil aviation should be in the 6th schedule and not in the 5th schedule, because the reason civil aviation falls under central government and not the Tobago House of Assembly is because if you have a situation where 2 different bodies could say your plane could come in or your plane cannot come in, etc., then you could have a national security issue, and that is going to be a problem
perhaps
in
an
this.
accident, but I think
And accidents also.
No, but, okay, so you
That
think that
being
for the
said-
purpose of aviation, where we have to, you think that
It has to be a 6th schedule item.
Airlines could be
you think that a centralized
It has
authority?
to be centralized.
You think a centralized
It
authority?
has to be
is the better
centralized for
approach?
security
So you could,
purposes.
but you could tweak your law for the construct, so you have sufficient representatives from the THA and sufficient
That's
representatives
exactly what
from
you
the
need to
central
do.
government.
Just what you said.
But you think a centralized authority
Yes.
is the best working.
That is
arrangement.
exactly what we need to do. And also, I
I
would
don't
want
agree, but
to
I'm
agree.
just telling you that I hear you and I.
Right. And I
but
want to
I think
agree
it-
with
I
you,
think it- yeah.
Mr. Barrington
Because-
Skippy, and I think we all
because
agree
in
with
the
you.
large United States with our 52 states,
Yes.
52 states,
52,
you will
yeah.
never hear about the Miami Civil Aviation, New York Civil Aviation. You hear about the United States Federal Civil Aviation Authority.
Exactly.
Right, so.
And I also
So I
agree
think
with you
that is a
that
very
when we
strong
when we
point.
consider Mr. Lyndon Mack's point, which is that it is deeper than just money,
Yes.
honesty.
Well, that is nice.
Very
because
important.
that is nice.
The reason
that is
why
nice. I like how
honesty-
you're complimented
the reason why-
Lyndon.
He doesn't agree with me, I doesn't agree with him. Anyway, the reason why honesty
That's
is
nice.
important, right?
Yeah.
One thing we all agree with is that Hochoi Charles was a very honest chief secretary. So when he said he's going to do something, we expected him to do it. We have a situation whereby you have a chief secretary
Leroy, we're
saying,
discussing no church.
Which one is it?
I'm
Church
going to
Charles?
pong somebody there.
No,
no, Leroy. That is,
I'm not ponging nobody.
Leroy, go ahead,
If
go
a
ahead,
chief
yeah,
secretary
yeah.
says that Tobago is going
Yeah.
to become the #1 producer of alternative flour,
Yeah.
and that after the first quarter of his first term in office, that is going to happen, that goes a long way in terms, that is something to applaud. That goes a long way in terms of Tobago's autonomy, in terms of self-sufficiency, producing food, etc. We should honor Hochoi Charles by, as representatives, whether we are representatives or we just happen to be on this side of the camera, trying to be honest in our words. When we say things, people must know that what you are saying is the truth. That is what I will close with saying.
Yes, see,
well, I don't think that
yes,
is
see,
too much to ask from our
it's not too much
politicians.
to ask.
it's not too much at
Yeah.
all, and you know,
I don't honestly don't think it's
the
too much. to
reality
ask.
is the reality is that when you go back to the elections, the question is normally asked:
Yeah.
have our politicians delivered on their word?
Were they
Have
truthful?
we looked at? Are we looking at the data and the information that says, if you are going to give this, can you deliver?
Yeah.
That's a very big conversation. And for me, I think at this point in time, and I'll just say this. This is
Yeah.
my unbiased point. This administration takes some real hits. They take hits left, right, and center. They're taking it right now. We might not agree with that, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
I think two, they are going to make some serious mistakes as well. They are young in the business. There's no greater business than experience being in the table of management.
Yeah, when it matters a lot.
With all the great policies you have, when you are there, is how you're governed, is how people are going to remember.
Yeah.
So that's things that we have to look at. But what I would finally say is that the administration needs to take some serious consideration to buckle down and focus on what needs to be delivered. Forget the puppy showing and the flashy this and the flashy that, and get down to the work that the people elected you to get done. So that when we now have to revisit the part of what has been done in 5 years, have we delivered in that 5-year span? And well,
the period for which have
we delivered, and what can we expect? Those are things that every person will look at.
But I just want to one thing wrap up. And considering Ochoy, I just want Tobago to use the death of Mr. Charles. Everybody know what Ochoy stand for trying to get, and he and others, not he alone, to try to get subsidy. It's just that he had maintained and keep it at the front burner for all these years. So we want to use it. I want to use it that what he stands for, and then for us as a people, collectively, to come together
and
to make
want autonomy
and to make this thing happen. And I think that is the best way we could honor Mr. Charles, who is a true soldier.
So we
to the
expect
political
to see a bill coming out of the THA.
It had bills already. That process already done, Roger.
Exactly.
That process have already been done. We went to the length and breadth
duty and promised the people of
Tobago. Then allow me to make my comments to close, right? So allow me to make my comments to close. But you finished, Barry?
Yeah, I finished.
So my position is that I speak my truths as I believe them. I assess politicians. Like how the British assess their politicians. How have my life been positively affected by Ochoy Charles' reign and governance? And the truth is, Ochoy Charles did nothing for me, quite frankly. And that is how we must assess politicians, Tobago. I want to say that. The British, the Europeans, and that is why the Canadians, developed countries, the Scandinavian countries, they develop their politician based on their own individual circumstances with a set list of patterns. And it is those patterns, after being assessed, they decide, no, well, you as a politician, you has no value to me, I'm moving on. He have offered something, I'm going to take a chance with him. And so my point is, Ochoy Charles have did nothing for me. And a lot of people I know tell me, well, boy, I could say the same thing. So he may have done for others. And for those he have done things for, they would be grieving, they would be mourning his loss and so. I mourn his loss in so far that he was a human being. And the death of any human being is a loss to humanity on a whole. Having said that, he was a former Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, and I'm Tobagonian. I wish his grieving family comfort in this time of their bereavement and so. If he's a standard that other politicians should follow, then I would advise politicians to not emulate Charles, because we'll end up with 4 more years of nothing more than argument and so. And if his challenges were issues of the autonomy, then mobilize the island to fight for the autonomy. But I'm not prepared, like those in the election that dethroned Charles, I'm not prepared, like those. I'm not prepared to hear an excuse of autonomy. If the issue is one of autonomy, mobilize us and let us fight for the autonomy. 2025 would be 100 years of the call and cry and struggle for autonomy. And if we have been doing it one way for 99 years and it's not working, Why don't we change the approach? So if we really want to honor Charles, and I'm not prepared to sit down here and talk choppiness and laugh and grin and cry and so, because it sounds cute and it's politically correct to praise Charles. I'm not here to praise Charles. I'm not here to praise Charles. In fact, I'm here to bury him. Not here to praise Charles. So I'm saying that if Charles' problem was if Charles' reason for not being able to deliver nothing to me was autonomy, and if London, same thing with London, London delivered nothing to me either. And if London problem was unable to deliver anything to me to develop my life, so I could say, well, I subscribe to his politics and so, was one of autonomy. And if it was, the noon struggle was autonomy, if all these, well, no, I can't say, because Denoon had less power than them, and I felt that my life was better under Lennox Denoon. And he had less power, if any at all. So if their fellas' argument is they had autonomy, invite us as islanders here in Tobago to help you fight for the autonomy. But we're not going to allow you to come back in 2025 when the election is called to tell us you had autonomy problems, right? So if we want to honor Charles, let us honor him by starting the struggle for Tobago's autonomy and starting it now. So good night, folks, and that is where we have to leave it, yes.
They not start it, no, right now.
Okay. So it is.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the commentators, guest, and host. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the policy or the views held by Tobago Updates or this network. Tobago Updates or this network cannot be held accountable for all or